Hi guys, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge. It's the last video for January 2018, and we've got a wee Wednesday knife. This is a knife by Sanrenmu. It's the 4110. Comes in 3 colors. Very modern looking colors. Very nice colors. Full flat grind on a little knife. I think you're going to be interested in this guy, so stick around for the full review. One of the first things you're going to notice is how tiny this little guy is, and it is pretty small to fit into my hand like this. I do have large hands that border on extra large, so maybe it isn't quite all that tiny. It is a slip joint, obviously, and it's a two-hand knife, so it does take, 2 hands to open it. You can't really... I can open it with one hand. There you go. I got it. But it's pretty tricky, and it's not that easily done. It is physically possible to get it open with one hand, but it's a two-hand knife. It's got this typical spring back here that gets pushed up while the spring gets open, and then you open it all the way, and that spring holds it closed. So it's got a strong detent. You hit it on the back, and it just wants to spring back unless you push it far enough. And then it wants to close if you push it far enough. And it takes over at that last little point there. It's not going to open easily on you. It's actually very hard to get this thing to open by accident. Once it's closed, it's closed. So the way I like to carry a knife like this is on my keychain. I've got a keychain system that looks like this. And what I do is I use these tiny little carabiners and a small little split ring, and I put a split ring on the end of the knife there. So before I do that and show that to you, let's take a look at what this looks like in a pants pocket, because you might want to use it that way. I don't know. It's up to you. It comes that way. Of course, often when you're wearing pants, you might have a little coin pocket, or you might have a regular pocket. This thing's definitely small enough that it'll fit in your little coin pocket. You've got less than a centimeter sticking out there, less than half of an inch of knife sticking out. That's about a little more than 3/8. Oh, between 3/8 and half of an inch sticking out. Not much at all. And it just sort of sits in there and holds on very nicely. But I don't use it that way. So what I'm going to do is take that pocket clip off. And I put my split ring on there. I've got a number of different split rings in a number of different sizes, because I do this with most of my small knives. And you just put the split ring on there. You could use a smaller split ring if you want to. Oh yeah, I probably should have gotten a smaller split ring. The reason I should have got a smaller split ring is because you don't want the ring to be able to come over the top like this. Because if it can come over the top like this, that means you can close it, and then you're going to wreck your cutting edge. So after I've made this video, I'm going to go back and grab one of my smaller split rings and use that instead. Here you can see that I put on a smaller split ring back here, and it can't fold over the end. So that's a much better split ring to use. It protects you from, having it come over and get, pinched between the blade. I click it on these little carabiners, and so it's with me whenever I need it. And then when I need to use the knife, I don't need to go like this and carry the whole big bundle with me. And it's kind of awkward using a knife like that. I can just take it off, use it however I need to use it. And then when I'm done, close it up and click it back on my keychain, and it's there waiting for me whenever I want to. So I'll have links to the different carabiner clips and stuff. They don't have this exact shape anymore right now, but they've got other ones. And they've got this main ring here. They call it a UFO ring. And it's got all the tiny little split rings. And you can add on, 8 separate items on here. Makes it very handy for carrying keys. At least I think so. And extra bits and pieces. A little flashlight, a little knife, a little whistle, what have you. But we're talking about this knife, aren't we? Oh, I'm getting distracted on the last day of January. So yeah, full flat grind and aluminum handle scales here and steel and lots of room for a split ring here. Or if you want a really thin kind of lanyard, you can do that as well. So 8CR13 MOB stainless steel. So decent basic budget steel. They even put in a tiny little sharpener's choil or Spanish choil, whatever you want to call it right there. There's the Sanrenmu logo in, or Sanrenmu logo in Chinese right there. And on this side, it has the model 4110 SUX-LZ. So there you go. Let's do all the measurements of this before we get ahead of ourselves. Cutting edge, 4.7 centimeters, 1.86 inches. Blade length, very much the same, 4.8 centimeters, 1.89 inches. Blade thickness, right here at the base closest to the pivot, 2.17 millimeters. That's 0.0855 inches. The blade depth, that's between my thumb and my finger, right here at the base, 1.83 centimeters. That's 0.721 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, behind that fine little bevel, 0.36 millimeters. That's 0.014 inches. Beautiful thin little edge there. That makes this thing slice awesome. Very, very well. The handle length is 6.8 centimeters, 2.68 inches. The grip area on the inside here, 5.47 centimeters, 2.15 inches. The handle thickness, just under 7 millimeters. That's 0.272, just over 1/4 of an inch thick. The handle depth, that's this way, and I measured here at the thickest spot, close to where this wavy line is across here. 1.65 centimeters, that's 0.65 inches. The total length of this knife with the blade deployed is 11.64 centimeters, 4.58 inches. 26 grams, 0.9 ounce. So very light, small, easy to handle, and yet it fits. In my large hands that border on extra large, I can get a 3-finger grip on here, just ever so barely. That is very nice for a wee little knife. Let's zoom back out. So the knife is easy to hold in a number of different ways. If I just do it this way with a 2-finger grip and have the 3rd finger back here, sort of a pinch kind of grip, you can do all kinds of cutting. Sneak up and get your index finger behind here for a little bit of pressure for that kind of cutting if you need to. You're not going to do any of the reverse grips or anything silly like that. It's basically this kind of grip and this kind of grip is what you're going to be doing with it. And it works very, very well for those things. Let's demonstrate. I've got some maple here. Maple is rather hard to cut, and it's a really strong wood. It's a hard wood, definitely a hard wood, and cuts just fine. Let's try some paper. Very, very sharp. Now, I did sharpen it after I got it home, and I did have a question from a viewer, and it's a legitimate question. It's a very good question. Why do I sharpen my knives before I do the reviews? Why don't you just tell us what it's like from the factory? And I need to talk about this every once in a while, and that was a good reminder that it's about time to talk about it again. And that's because the way the knife is from the factory is such a short percentage of the life of this knife that it doesn't really represent the knife well. It represents the factory edge, which is what it is. It represents how it comes from the factory, but my knife isn't going to be like that very long. I'm going to use it. It's going to get dull, and I'm going to sharpen it. And the way I sharpen it is how it's going to spend, 99% of its life, and not just, that little time that it's from the factory. And the reason some people want to know very much what it's like from the factory, I suspect, is the same reason I had way back when I first started collecting. I got, all interested in collecting, and I wanted to collect like crazy, and I was getting knives, and I wanted them to be nice and sharp from the factory because I wanted to use them. And I never actually invested in a sharpening system. And so if you're wanting to become a knife collector and you're into the hobby, you're just barely getting into it, and you're starting to think if you want to get into it or not, do invest in a good budget sharpening system very early on. Lansky makes a number of different sharpening systems that are really good. You can view my channel. I'll give you a link below in the description for all of my different Lansky videos. That's a budget way to be able to sharpen your knives, because you can't rely on the factory edge. You're going to use your knife. It's going to get dull. You're not going to throw it in the garbage. If you don't have anything to sharpen with it, the best you can do is close it up and put it in a drawer somewhere. So you need to learn how to sharpen your knives. So you want to know how well this knife performs when it's sharpened. Because some knives, you get them from the factory and they look really sharp and you use them. That's great. And you go to sharpen it, and that's when you find out that the steel is in fact garbage. Either the heat treat was no good on it, even though the steel type is quite good, but the heat treat was just terrible, or something went wrong, or it just isn't what they claim to be, or whatever. And you need to know that. And that's why I sharpen my knives before I do my video. It's one step that I can take to confirm that the steel is good on this knife, and it's what you are looking for, and it's going to perform the way you expect it to perform. And I can give you all of that information, but I can only do that if I've sharpened it. And that's why I sharpen my knives before I make my video. So what else do we have here? How much are you going to pay for this knife? Right now at GearBest, this knife costs $6.92 US, $8.79 Canadian, 5.77 euros, or 5.13 British pounds sterling, and there's a small shipping fee added to that as well. So, there you go. It's a good little knife, good price. And I would like to suggest that if you're going to buy something from GearBest, buy, a couple of things. The price of your shipping doesn't just compound. It actually, if you had to pay $2 shipping for this and you bought another thing, let's say you bought this and that was $2 shipping as well. When you go to the checkout point, you're going to end up paying about $3 shipping total. That's sort of how it works. Those numbers are not gospel. It's just I'm just trying to demonstrate how their shipping prices work. So what do I think of this knife? I really, really like this full flat grind. I really like how it comes very thin at the edge without getting so thin that it's terrible. Really nice little sharpener's choil. The tip is very strong, really good for doing fine little work. The keychain works very well. I like that it's just the back spring here that has the hole through it instead of having to weave this split ring through this entire 1/4 of an inch. That would be quite a bit more difficult to do. So just having this little less than 1/8 of an inch to weave this through, that's a really good feature. So that's good. I like how the screws are nice and just sort of polished over on the show side here. And you only have to screw them up on this side. Let me show you the inside of this knife now. And I can show you that they actually use phosphor bronze washers in there. I've opened it up and shown it to you. I suggest that you do not take this knife apart. This is a very tricky knife to get back together. I had a terrible time getting it back together perfect. Because of the tension of the spring when you go to put it back together, these 3 holes don't want to line up. You have to get just the right kind of pressure. I taped up the blade like crazy so I wouldn't be able to cut myself, and had to push and angle, and it took me about 15 minutes to get it back together. And that's not because I don't know what I'm doing. I've taken apart and put together a lot of knives. It's just back spring knives, especially when they get small like this, get very tricky and finicky. So you can see the inside there, or you've seen the inside there. It's amazing that a little knife like this, they use phosphor bronze. Sanrenmu is the company to make really good quality small things. So that's the good stuff. What are the cons in here? I don't have any cons on this knife. I just don't. they've just made a really good knife, good grip in the hand. They don't need jimping or anything because just the way they made this handle. And the only thing I would like is I think this is a great design for them to make into a locking one with a back lock. That would be a really good next step to take with this knife. Make a back lock version of it, and those of us who can have locking knives would be very, very happy. Thankfully, here in Canada, we can now have up to 6 centimeter blades on taken on our airlines for domestic flights. So you can put this knife on your keychain, and as long as you're flying domestic, not a problem at all with a knife like this because it's only 4.7 centimeters and you can have up to 6. So that's a really good thing. Good choice, good steal for a budget knife, really good price. It's a really nice knife that fits in the hand really well and looks great. It's an all-around good knife. I recommend it quite highly to you. And here's a picture of the other colors that you can get this in. Links are in the description below if you want to buy it. And today is your last chance to become a Patreon supporter for the month of January. Tomorrow I'll be doing a draw of all the Patreon supporters to win a free knife of mine. It's not going to be worth just a little $10 knife. It's going to be a good knife. And all you have to do is become a Patreon supporter for $2 a month or more. And that really helps out this channel an awful lot. And the other way you can support the channel is, as I said earlier, if you want to buy this knife, just please use the links in the description below. And even on these really low-cost knives, I get a decent little referral fee that gets kicked back to me by GearBest, and that helps me out financially as well. So thank you very much for all those different ways that you guys are supporting me through the thumbs up and the likes and just the comments and all that other stuff. Also remember, I've got a new Facebook page. Link is in the description below, facebook.com/Canadian Cutting Edge. Remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.